Questions? No? Okay, let's go to the next one. We're just going to do a bunch of examples, okay? All right, so let's go through and label our A, B, H, and K. All right, do we have an A? Yeah, A. Right? B and K. So no H. We are not doing any horizontal shift yet. Okay, so the number multiplied by x, that's your B value. So here we go, period, okay? That's 2 pi, or are we in degrees? No, we're in radians. So 2 pi over 0.5, because 0.5 is our B value, right? Now ignore the pi, all right? What is 2 divided by 0.5? And if you're not sure, do it in your calculator. What is 2 divided by 0.5? 2 divided by 2 would be 1. Becca? 4. Do it in your calculator if you have to. 2 divided by 0.5 is 4. So our period is actually 4 pi. So again, what that means is we should start and finish, and it should take 4 pi units for that to happen in. Now, how do I get my increments again? What do I do with the period to get like my increments of points? Divided by 4, thank you. So down here, okay, I'm going to take my period 4 pi divided by 4, which means every pi units I should have points at. Okay, because your graph is always broken up into fourths. So now I know that every pi units I should have a point. All right, let's see what else we have going on. What's our amplitude going to be? 2, thank you. Is it reflecting? Do we have a negative A value? No. Shifting left or right, phase shift? No. Vertical shift?
Yes.
Down 1, good. Okay. So then let's start to kind of get our graph organized here. I'm going to draw in my new midline at negative 1, because we're shifting down 1. And then remember, we need points at every pi units. So I'm going to start at 0 because we're not shifting left or right at all. But I'm going to need a point here, here, pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, and then remember we should end at 4 pi. So I just like to map out all of the locations that I'm going to have points. Is that hard to see, you guys? I don't know if that's much better. I like to map out where I'm going to have points so that I can be as organized as possible when I'm doing this. All right? All right, and then we should be ready to go. So sine, right? Does sine start at 0 or 1? 0. So here we go. There's our starting point at 0 on our midline. And then we just have to remember that our amplitude is 2, right? Now sine looks like this, remember. Right? So now we need to go to that max point. So now go over pi units, and instead of up 1, we need to go up 2 because it was stretched by 2 from the amplitude. So again, pi units over, because we're going pi units, so pi units over, we are up 2 because of the amplitude. Then pi units over, back down to the midline, that's this point here. Another pi units over, we're 2 below the midline for that minimum point. And then another 2 over, we are back at the midline. And then you can draw in your curve. Okay. Questions? So again, the green is just the increments that we're going to be plotting our points in. Okay, next one. Alright, so let's label everything here. So we have A, now we do have an H, and then K. Okay, now this is not your B value because it's not attached to the X, right? Anything plus or minus the x is your h. Anything multiplied by the x is your b, okay? So, what is our b value in this case? Like when we look and we see that we don't really have one, what is the b value? Not 0, but I know why you said that, it's 1. Okay? So period, I'm just going to say 2 pi over 1, which is really just 2 pi. Like you guys, I could have given this to you as a warm-up and you could have done it because it doesn't have a change in b value. But normally your b value is just 1 if there has not been a period change. Okay? What's our amplitude? 1, thank you. Is it reflecting? Yes, because the a value is negative. How are we shifting you guys left and right? So first of all, pi over 2 is 90, but we're all in radians, and so that doesn't really even matter. But are we going left or right? Left, very good. So we're going left, pi over 2. And then what's our vertical shift? Up 1, very good. And then remember, we want to figure out where our points are going to be. So how do I find those again? Yep, we take our period divided by 4. Very good. So I'm going to take the period of 2 pi divided by 4 to get the increments at which my points will go. What is 2 pi over 4 reduced to? Pi over? What's 2/4, you guys, reduced? 1/2, so pi over 2. Good. So these are where our points are going to be. And then let's get all of that onto our graph. So drawing your new midline up at 1. And then our phase shift, we're going left pi over 2. So I'm going to draw in that vertical barrier as well. Not really a barrier, but it helps us with our graphing. And then I am going to map out where my increments are going to be. So again, every pi over 2 units, I need a point. All right? So I'm going to need something here, obviously. Pi over 2, here, and there. And I think I need one more. Yeah. Okay. And then we should be able to start. So sine 0 or 1, where does it start? 0. So let's plot that. Again, not actually at 0, but at our new 0, 0, what we consider to be our new 0, 0. Now it's reflected sine. So remember, we're kind of following this image. Right? Okay, so now instead of moving over and going up, I need to go down. All right? So I'm going to go over pi over 2 because those are the increments we're working with. And then our amplitude is still just 1, so 1 unit below the midline. So that was this point. Now I need to work my way back up. So now pi over 2 units over, I should be back on the midline. Pi over 2 units over, I should be above the midline 1 unit. And then you should always end where you start. Like that. Good? All right, next one. What's the next one? Do you guys want to try this one like on your own? Since this is one that we've kind of been doing. It doesn't have a horizontal shift. Yeah? Okay, I'll give you like 2 minutes to try this one and then we'll continue going. At least to get started, and then we'll do the degree one. So get everything mapped out. just pi over 4. Don't change that to 4 pi.
I tried answering, but if there's a
Okay, how do you find the period? So flip to where it says how to find the period if you don't remember how to do that.
other place.
So if you're in radians, you take 2 pi divided by your b value. If you're in degrees, you take 360 divided by your b value. Okay? So your b value is 2. It looks like we're in radians.
So 2 pi
Over
2.
Yeah. And then simplify that. So let's simplify too.
No.
Yeah, so just like pi. Yeah, good. Okay. Is it shifting left or right at all? Like, do you have something where it's like this, like parentheses and then x plus or minus a number? So no, for phase shift. And then how do you find out the increments that you're gonna graph by? What do you do with the period? To find like where you're gonna have points. 5. Look up above what we did.
4.
Yeah, divide by 4 to get your increments.
2 pi divided by 4.
Yep, that's gonna be where do you always need points at?
Is pi over 4? Yeah.
Yeah, you want pi though, because this one was 2 pi, you want pi. Your period is pi, 2 pi was from up here. Yeah, pi over 4.
Oh, so just 1 pi?
Yeah, every pi over 4 units. So yeah, you're gonna have to break those into halves. Girls, are we done with that second example? Tatiana? You guys okay? So then I would get this drawn and then mark all of your little pi over 4 so that you know exactly where you're gonna have points at.
So for this one, we're gonna do 360.
Well, this one, so you have to look first.
Oh.
So this one, it's 2 pi divided by 2, which is and then like, it has to go from one short circle, and they have to put the points at half.
So right here.
Yes, yeah, just like that. Why is that's a free sign.
Okay, so take a look up here and just see like if everything looks good so far. So we have an A, a B, and a K. The period would be 2 pi over 2, which is just pi, which means our increments are going to be pi over 4. Amplitude is 3, and we're shifting up 1. So if we draw all of that in, up 1, and then every pi over 4 increments. So that's going to be like pi over 4, like that, right? Because you have pi over 2, pi over 4 is in the middle, so you have to cut those in half, okay? And then it's cosine. So normally, okay, if this is like our 0, cosine normally starts at 1. However, it's an amplitude of 3. So I'm going to go 3 above my midline. 3 above my midline. Okay? Now pi over 4 units over. So pi over 4 units over. We are back on the midline. Yeah?
So the amplitude doesn't matter for like the second point?
No, because if you're normally on 0, you can't stretch 0.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, right.
Okay. Amplitude is just how much above or below the midline you are. So if you're a point on the midline, you can't be above or below, you're just on the midline.
So it's like multiplying.
It's like, yeah. All right, and then another pi over 4 over. So at pi over 2, you're going to be below 3. So 3 below the midline. And then we work our way back up. So another pi over 4, you're back on the midline. And then another pi over 4, you're 3 above the midline. Okay. All right, and then the last one I think has everything. All right, so here we go, last one. So we have A, B, H, and K. So let's get that all labeled. Okay, A, B, H, and K. And now we're in degrees, so just be aware of that. So now instead of doing like 2 pi over B, we're going to do 360 over B. Because pi and 360 are the, or I'm sorry, 2 pi and 360 are the same, just different types of measures. So here we go. 360 over 0.5. What does that equal? If you're not sure, do it in your calculator. 720. Good. 720. Okay. What's our amplitude? What's our amplitude? 2. Reflecting?
Yes.
Phase shift? Left 90. Awesome. Vertical shift? Up 1. Good. Now, how do I figure out where my increments are? Your points. Do what with the period? Divide by 4. Good, Kennedy. So take 720 divided by 4, and what do you get? Now you do that.
Wow.
180. Thank you. So every 180 degrees, you should have points at. So then let's get all of this kind of drawn in, and then we will start our graph. Okay? So we are going left 90. There's that. We are going up 1. There's that. So that's our new, what we consider our new x and y axis. Okay? Then I'm going to map out where we should have points at. Now we said it's every 180, right? So if I start here, my next point is going to be over at 90, then 270, 450, 630, right? Because every 2 units on our graph is 180. Every 1 is 90, every 2 is 180. And then we can start, right? So if this is where our 0, 0 is, right? Cosine normally starts up 1. But this is reflected, so below 1, with an amplitude of 2. So you're going to start 2 below that midline. Okay, 2 below the midline. Below because it's negative, it's reflected. 2 because that's the amplitude. And then our next point is on the midline, since this is cosine. Our next point is that maximum, so 2 above the midline. And then we work our way back down. So then we're back on the midline. And then to end, we are 2 below the midline because that's how we started. And there you go.